Welcome to the Hours. I'm Tyler. We got a new face and a new voice joining the Hours, but he's not new to anyone that has been hanging out in our community. I would like to welcome Frank Fogg to the pod.
Yeah, excited to be here.
I've heard this, the Fogginator thrown around there a couple times. Is there like an origination of the nickname?
The very first person who ever called me that was the principal at my first head coaching job. And she was the first one to throw it out. And it's kind of followed me and spread organically since. I think it's like when you buy a yellow car and you see yellow cars everywhere. I heard it from her first, and then it kind of stuck.
Everybody's saying it.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, give everybody a quick background. I know many people that are in our community have benefited from your wisdom and your answers. I love reading your answers because I read them. I'm like, oh, I have nothing to add. That's exactly what I would have said. So tell us a little bit about your basketball journey, your connection with Mark and now SAVI. Let's let everybody get to know you a little bit.
Yeah, anytime I answer, I just go through the steps of WWMS, what would Mark say? WWTS, what would Tyler say? So I just follow those and try to channel my inner savvy there. I'm an Austin-based coach in Austin, Texas. I've been here the better part of a decade now, but I've been all over the state. Started off in Central Texas, moved to East Texas, then to West Texas, then got married, had kids, and so we've kind of made home here in Austin. Bounced all over the place here, um, and got connected with Mark probably now about a decade ago, and just kind of started off learning under him, and then honestly just kind of pressured defense my way into what he does and helping out. And I find a lot of joy in helping coaches and talking basketball. And so there was a good meeting point with Courtside and now with Savvy. So I think I'm exactly where I need to be.
That's awesome. Okay, let me ask this question. These are small questions before we get to the big question. If you've been hanging around the pod at all, you know that big questions are coming, but here's another small question for you. What is one piece of advice that you would give to a new coach starting out that you wish you had known when you started?
Yeah, I think more of a directive, I guess, but just find the joy in it. And I think a side note of that would be understand like these are high school kids, and for the a lot of the coaches I talk to, and even trickling down to middle school kids and college might be a little bit different, but very rarely will they ever care as much as you care. And so trying to understand that and find the joy and keep it fun for them, and making it important for them when it needs to be, but understanding that they got 100 other things going on as well, and just letting them be a basketball player and play for the game, but enjoy some of the things that the game gives you too. When I started off as a young head coach, it was like, man, how do I get these kids to care? And I found the avenue of build a positive relationship with them and care about them as a person first. And it kind of opened up that whole world of success in terms of getting them to do what we needed them to do.
Yeah, I love how you shared of knowing your why. One of our good friends at Savvy, Nate Sanderson, has said this to me. He said his goal is to make practice the best part of his player's day. That's his goal. And I think that's a wonderful goal when you reframe it that way. You're going to have more joy. Your players are going to have more joy, and you're more likely to get what you actually want. I walked into our gym last night. I actually got to go visit three of our academy practices last night in different trainings, and it was just so delightful. I walked into the gym and like the players lit up and ran over and they're all happy and they were excited to be there. And I've been a part of a lot of teams, I think you have as well, where it's like, oh, I wish I wasn't here. I got so many other things. It's like, what are we doing then? If there's something else you'd rather be doing, go do it. And so I think that's a wonderful goal.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
All right, let's transition into, and I will just say this for everyone that's listening that you're probably at different stages of engaging with what we're trying to do at Savvy. We're on a mission to revolutionize the way the game is taught and played. And so part of that mission is to make practice the best part of your day. And if you vibe with that as a coach, you're in the right place. If you're unsure if that's what you want, then you might not be in the right place. But that's why we do what we do, along with other things. Is we believe that basketball should be fun, fast, and free, and that's why we teach the way that we teach and what we teach. And let's see if we can make it a little bit more fun, fast, and free for you as a coach today with a big question. Frank gets to answer this one first. Here is the big question: how important is scouting opponents and having a scouting report for a savvy coach? And by savvy coach, I mean like a conceptual coach, which we can dive into later. I have no idea what your answer is going to be here, and I'm excited to hear and then share my thoughts. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll talk from an offensive conceptual system, right? I think a common mistake with conceptual systems is we're gonna do what we do. We're gonna play our concepts. We're gonna follow our rules, and we're gonna do what we do. And I think that in that approach, you're leaving money on the table. I think it can be so much more. You scout how they play defense. Where do they help from? Are they one pass away? Are they denying? Are they gapping? And then you tailor your concepts that you have in, highlight those concepts to take advantage of that. So you have your menu of concepts and actions that you like, and you just take those two or three and make those the specials of the day, right? You put those on the big sandwich sign outside on the sidewalk and say, this is what we're doing this week. And then your practice plan, you build that plan around those concepts. So we're playing a sagging team or a really good help team, so escapes are going to be good for us this week. So escape shooting, maybe 2-on-2 escape. You build your plan around those, and before the guys even know it, they have the whole practice plan 2 days before the game starts. So it's a big part of what we do, running a conceptual system, knowing where the defense will be and how they play it. So it's not necessarily your traditional scout of we're going to run this set and this set. It's I want you guys to look to find these actions, hunt these actions first, and then we'll get to the other stuff as it opens up.
Okay, that's really good. All right, let's go. Let me do a couple of follow ups here. I'm sure that everyone is now out thinking this. Many people. What's an escape?
Right. Yeah. Good clarifying point there. So, uh, for us, my background's driving space, and so anytime we drive and pitch it out to the perimeter, we're going to settle into a spot near the paint and wait. And the reason we wait is we don't want to run away and leave our defender standing in help to clog up the paint. So we just wait. If the guy I passes to, the girl I pass to drives, then I escape opposite of that drive. So they drive left, I escape left, and I'm going to their spot, they're going to my spot. If they go two out, if we pitch it out and click click, then I'm going to just kind of settle into that ball side corner. So now I've opened up the new side. My defender has to go from help to guarding me to back to help, and we've moved defense.
Beautiful. And so for some of you, especially many of you coming from a race and space background, escape equals exit. Just two words that mean the same thing. You know, we have exit cuts, exit shooting. So escapes and exits really easy to overlay because they both start with E and are defined similarly. So I think that's awesome. Okay, here's the next follow up. Actually, let me make a point and then a follow up question. So what I love about what you shared there, Frank, is you identify areas of opportunity through your scouting, and then you highlight that by focusing on it in practice, clarifying the objective for your players. And so you're teaching them the why, but not just saying, here's what we're going to run, like here's a set we're going to run. And so I think for a conceptual coach, that is the value of scouting, is you do the work as the coach on the scout. You identify the areas of opportunity, and then you tailor your practice plan and your training so that it's top of mind. And you make sure that you're really sharp in those areas, and you're going to elevate your focus on that thing. Now, I have one more thing to say before I ask you the follow-up question. I'm going to I'm going to share a word of warning. I would warn against attempting to share with your team and players everything that you know about your opponent. Right. And that's a common mistake in scouting. It's like, okay, I'm the assistant coach. It's my turn to do the scout. And so I do all this work and I have this huge document to show my work that I've done a great job. And then I hand that out to every player and put it all on the whiteboard. And at my last Division One stop, That's exactly what we did. Okay. Right. Because basically every assistant coach wants to be a head coach at the D1 level. And so their scout is their opportunity to show the head coach and everybody else that look, I'm really, really good. And it's not focused on trying to get the team prepared. It's really just a status game. Be aware of that status game as a coach to show all the work that you've done, because simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. Can you distill it down to, hey, if we just press this button of exit cuts or escapes, we're going to get higher leverage stuff. That's all your team needs to know. So understand there's a difference between what you need to prepare for on a scout versus what you're going to communicate to your team. Frank, it seems like you have something to add to that one.
Yeah, I love it. I talking from a defensive perspective, I try to get every set they run, every call they have, every inbounds, and then I have my sheet. We'll go over their core offense, maybe their top set that they run, and then I just stare down the sideline as an assistant coach, and whatever call they make, I look at my sheet, I see it, and I just shout out the action. Hey, screen the screener. Hey, double away, whatever the action is in our language, and that's kind of how we communicate it. So it's again another split second decision for the guys, but it's been a good system for us rather than, like you said, overload. One more example on that. I think I know which college program it is, but I don't want to attribute it to them if I'm wrong. So one of my favorite things is locker room speeches, or the kind of like clipped videos of teams practicing, and I love looking in the background and seeing their signage and what they have up and what their lockers look like. That's the my biggest takeaways. And this particular team had a scout up, and they had the big 3M post-it posters that you stick on, and they just had the player name and then two or three things about that player, and those were all over the locker room. And I thought that was a really good way to scout without overloading. They're walking by those every single day, kind of like absorbing that information. And I think that's another good way to not share everything, just get the main points out there, and what we need to do to be successful.
Beautiful. Okay. Let me share one more thing actually, and then we'll move on an idea around scouting. I want to highlight your answer. I think one thing you said in there was really, really smart. Is you would identify everything they did, but you wouldn't point out what they were going to do. You actually then took the next cognitive step and you communicated what you wanted your own team to do. I was actually I got to coach a live game recently, and we were playing against this team, and we were blitzing all ball screens. They were running just high ball screen over and over again, and we were blitzing it. So the other coach repeatedly was screaming, "They're blitzing! They're blitzing! They're blitzing!" Right? As if that was informative or helpful for his team. His team, his players had no idea what to do with the blitz, right? Like pointing out what the opponent is doing is not helpful as a coach. Instead, you want to give reminders in advance of what your team should do in that scenario, right? And so, like, it's just like, there's a problem, there's a problem. Pointing out the problem does not help fix the problem. And so, I think that I just want to highlight that. I think that's really good because a lot of coaches, they're like, they're running head tap and they're really proud of themselves for identifying what the other team is doing. That's not valuable. What's valuable is having done the work to actually have your counter prepared in advance because you worked on escapes, and then give the reminder, hey, now's the opportunity to utilize this thing that we've already worked on. So I think that was really smart.
Yeah, we one of our kind of pillars is talk about us, and it goes exactly to that. Like, it's not he can't dribble, it's hey, pressure, 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 right? Like, let's remove the step where he can't dribble, so do this. Just cut out the first half of that sentence, and let's say what we need to do.
Yeah, gosh, okay. I really want to hammer that again. Just like the reason we do the hours is so that we can spend time, hours, minutes together to align and move forward into this principle based savvy approach. And and then the product of that is myself or anyone can walk into your gym and identify, okay, where are you kind of a savvy coach and where is there opportunity? One of the greatest opportunities I see with the coaches that I get to personally mentor is talk about us. For whatever reason, so many coaches, and it's one of the things I dislike about basketball culture, is so many times coaches talk about them, right? Like you said, they can't dribble or they can't guard you. And just from like a personal character standpoint as a leader, I think that that is a bad and negative look. Even like parents in the stands, right? Talk about us. Don't talk about how bad the refs are, or what a terrible player so and so is on the other team. No, talk about us. What can we do positively to move where we want to go as a team? I just love that. I hadn't heard that phrase before, talk about us, but a savvy coach talks about us. It doesn't talk negatively about somebody else.
Yeah, 100%.
Let's go to some mailbag stuff, and big snaps to you, Frank, as you are. Frank is our moderator in our free coaching community. We have over 18,000, no, 18,000, sorry, 1,800. I hope 18,000 someday. We have 1,800 members that are in there actively asking questions. I pop in there every single day to find that Frank and Mark have already answered all the questions that I would like to answer, but I read them all and I read the answers and I chime in occasionally, as much as I feel like I'm actually needed to chime in as well. Before we dive into this mailbag, Frank, what would you say is your biggest observation from interacting with this community so far and observing their questions? What's been your biggest observation or learning?
I think there's a lot of great information, right? And as we've grown, the sources of that great information have grown, which is great. I love that there's a lot of different ideas being shared. Basketball is not a one way game of, all right, hey, we hike the ball and then you're going to go block here and I'm going to throw it here, right? Like that's not how it works. And so, not that there's anything wrong with that either. To all those football
I don't
coaches
even
and
know what sport you're talking about there. So
yeah, they can be savvy too. They can be savvy too. Uh, we so I love it, and I think coaches sharing their shared experiences and the best thing about it is as a coach, I now have 5 or 6 solutions to a problem that I posed, and I get to decide which shoe is the best fit and how I can move forward. So, just the growth. I know it seems like every time I pull up the app, there's 2 or 3 more requests pending, and it's just more, more of that hive mind to grow it and not just as coaches, but grow the game.
beautiful. If you are not a part of our free coaching community where you can go to get all of your questions answered, get our free resources, it's linked below this episode. Just type in Savvy Coach on this thing called Google, and you'll be able to find it very easily. All right, let's go ahead and start this one. I'll ask this one of you first, Frank. It's from Dan Carey. We have a young, undersized, but deep team. That's it. That's unique. Young, undersized, deep.
Hmm.
Hmm. We plan on pressing a ton and playing pressure man to man with a little 2-3 zone mixed in at times. We want to be disruptive and keep teams off balance. All right, here's the question: to switch or not to switch off ball screens? We did a little bit of both. And I wish I would have just picked one and gone all in with it. That's good. I'll say that off the top. Um, Too much straddling. Which way would you guys recommend?
Yeah, I'd say you kind of have a good data set to pull from if you did both last year. So with being young, uh, my question would be: are those a lot of returners that did this last year, or are those some of the same? Either way, I think you have a data set to pull from and decide, hey, I like this way better, or I like this way better. So that's where I would probably start thinking about this as the coach of this team. But if I were just answering this question as an outsider, I would say the word disrupt just sent like signals off. So if the goal is to disrupt, I say switch them all, um, and continue to deny those reversals. They're setting off ball screens for 2 reasons: either as decoy action or to set up the main action. So you want to blow that up by not moving your defense as much. I would say if it were me, I would switch them all, stay in those gaps, stay in the lanes, and make them do something they're not used to doing.
Yeah, very good. I would agree. I'm a default switch guy for many, many reasons. Switch everything on ball, switch everything off ball. And it goes back to when trying to make a decision, don't make your decisions in isolation. Zoom out to your guiding principles. And so I like that you just did that there, Frank. You said, okay, your guiding principle is to be disruptive. In order to be disruptive, how does that inform what I'm doing? right? And so, for me, and I think for savvy coaches, like at the highest level, guiding principles are we want to have fun, play fast, and be free, right? And so, what allows us to do that? And I would just say switching allows us to do that. And then I would also then maybe go one layer lower, and three reasons to switch and three reasons not to switch. I'll just throw it out real quick. One reason to switch: it allows you to steal passes more. All right, when you switch, you can be disruptive in passing lanes. And this goes back to, for me, the lock left defense, which is my defensive answer to anything. And we want to hunt passes, not dribbles. So when switching, we can go and be really aggressive and hunt passes. Okay. Second, we want to speed up the basketball. So that means we care more about the ball handler than we do about off ball players. If we lose sight of someone, we'll lose sight of off ball, but we won't lose sight of the ball. So when switching, that allows us to stay heavier onto the ball. When not switching, then we have to go and trail or whatever, get under or whatnot. It gives it. We're more occupied with off-ball action when we're not switching. So that'd be another reason where I'd suggest to switch. And then the last reason for me is just player development. I want all players to be able to do all things. One of the, and we'll get this kind of, we'll segue into the reasons not to switch. One of the biggest reasons not to switch is mismatches. So and so can't guard so and so, so we don't want to switch. Well, I want all players to develop and be able to guard all things. And so I want to switch everything. All right. Anything to add on reasons to switch or feedback on that, pushback?
Yeah, I think when you mentioned reasons not to switch, like those mismatches, but Coach Carey said that he's undersized anyway, right? So if you're undersized anyway, and you might as well switch, and you're going to eat that one way or another if a team's taking advantage of it. So again, being zooming out and being as disruptive as possible. A lot of times when we add something, whether it's on the offensive side or defensive side, we like to ask the question, do we already have a rule for that? Or like you mentioned, do we already have a principle for that in play with our guys and that we coach? And so if our rule is we want to disrupt, then switching is the way to go, and being undersized and being deep the way that you are, I think that switching is definitely the right call.
Yeah. Okay, this is hard for me, but I'm gonna try to come up with reasons not to switch. This would be, and I already shared one, is like you're really afraid of mismatches. Like they've got a star player and you've got a really weak defender, and if they switch, they're barbecue chicken. Okay, that would be one reason not to switch. Second reason not to switch is effort. Occasionally, if you have a team, if you're defaulting to not switching, it can lead to laziness. Whereas like, don't get screened, get through the screen, right? Like just the effort level. If that's like where you want to hang your hat and you're not demanding the standard of effort elsewhere in all other things, it can be one button I think one could push is like, yeah, don't get screened. It's just an effort test. It's an effort standard. And then the last thing would be for me, I already shared the inverse of this. Savvy is like basketball is a game of opposites. In the lock left, we really want to make the ball go and we want to flood to the ball. Well, maybe you play a defense where you don't want to make the ball go and you want to focus on taking away off ball action. Well, that might be a reason not to switch. It's like, okay, we're not going to make the ball go. The ball's not going to penetrate because we're really sagging off of it and we're squared up to it. And so we're not going to switch off the ball. And so we want to focus on how we actually guard off ball. So that might be another reason kind of not to switch. Any other reasons not to switch?
I think one thing is it not if you're a switching team and the other coach has done their due diligence and has scouted you well. I think there are some really good actions versus teams that switch, and if teams can take advantage of that, maybe it puts you at a disadvantage. But again, if your goal is to disrupt, keep the ball in one person's hands, limit touches everywhere else. Um, and you're switching all the off ball stuff, I think there's more pros than cons. The other one that came to mind that you touched on was effort. I think sometimes that backside we don't always talk, touch, and take. Sometimes we get split, we get that slip to the basket. Uh, so I would just emphasize like we want to blow up every single action that they're running, and we want to be the aggressor there. I think coming from that coaching point, you set yourself up for success there.
Yeah. We're doing some consulting for a college team right now. I just broke down film of a come from behind victory where they hit a three with like 5 seconds left to win. Anyway, um, they are a not switching team. They're a not switching team. And I went through and just kind of statted it. So they got beat on off ball screening action as like the primary thing that hurt them, the primary thing that hurt them. And there was a lot of off ball screening action by this team that they were playing. And so, coming out of it, I'm like, do you think you would have been worse off if you had just switched everything? Was the question that I posed to this coach. And he's like, no, actually, in this game, we would have been way better off switching everything. So they've been switching on ball and not switching off ball. And I'll just kind of go back to alignment. And I've been giving him this feedback as well. Is I was like, if you're going to switch on ball, you should just switch off ball, like switch everything. It's really hard for a player to change their mind. Or if you're just going to hedge and get back on ball, then maybe consider, not switching off ball either. I just think alignment and simplicity generally wins. I'm wearing the shirt today. Simplicity wins. Okay, it's underneath my Mr. Rogers. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood cardigan. Simplicity wins.
I like
All right,
the full fit check there.
exactly, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm still wearing shorts on the bottom, right? Business up top, comfort on the bottom. Okay, here's the last question from the mailbag we'll do today. And I'm going to kind of adjust Coach Roseboom's question here. Who gets to run what actions? But I'm just going to adapt it and ask you this one because this is what I'm curious about, Frank. Um, have you ever had players that you just don't want involved in any actions?
We actually moved into a 5 out attack this year. Uh, using the two slots, the stretch and the corners. And we did that from a SAVI concept of why play a big if he's our eighth best player. So if he's our eighth best player, why aren't we playing our five best players? But the big can still play. He can still play on the perimeter a little bit, but we don't want him to necessarily be running a fan action where we're setting him up for a three, right? We don't want him um, uh, always driving a fingers cut. We'd rather him swing it and cut away. We'd rather him pass and be the fingers cutter. So um, we give him some guidance of we want you to look for this more. I really try to avoid telling players for a number of reasons, but I really try to avoid telling players, hey, I never want you to fan or I never want you to shoot the three. So instead, hey, these actions are really good for you and they're really good for us as a team. So I want you to hunt these actions as often as you can. And then if you feel in your like every bone in your body is like this is a time to fan, great, fan it and let's play from there.
Beautiful. And I just threw, for those of you on YouTube, up on the screen, the spacing, the alignment, the shape that Frank was just talking about. On you call it stretch spot, correct?
Yeah, wide,
Yeah,
yeah,
perfect.
other terms for
Yeah.
it.
So wide
Wide,
stretch, Houston sometimes. Is
yeah.
this where you have them, or would you adjust that?
Yeah, Mark calls it a 45 as well. We
Yeah.
have them top of the key and then right where 5 is, so you're pretty much spot on there.
Cool. So I'll just share for those of you that are on YouTube. So I would agree. I would call this stretch spot as well. One alignment that we play with more in the race and space than the drive and space is what I would call wide. And the only difference between stretch and wide is this: the wide spot I actually bring all the way up in line with the action spots. Um, it just creates a little bit more space and a little bit more of a decision for whoever's guarding five. And for what it's worth, I'm geeking out here for 30 seconds. What I found most often is whoever's matched up with the five when they actually go wide as opposed to stretch, they actually don't come out here. Instead, they tend to kind of like drop even deeper into the paint, which I don't mind at all because it tends to run like once we run any sort of an action, it tends to create a stampede for us and easier penetration. So that's kind of the benefit. Of course, we're not catching to shoot from this wide spot, but it does allow us to get into more stampedes and create even bigger gaps and longer dominoes when we do make catches. So just a quick little thought for everybody. We'll kind of move off that one pretty quick and let's transition now. into the game of the week. And again, we encourage you to build out your training, your practice plans, your player development with activities and objectives. And our activities could be made up of games or drills. The difference between a game and a drill, and sometimes we do drills in the game of the week as well. The difference between a game and a drill is, can you win? Right? A drill is we're just going to rep out something without a focus on finding a way to win. Whereas a game is like, okay, let's see if we can put these things into practice and try to win. There's a score, there's a way to be successful. I don't drill very much in pickleball because it's not as much fun as playing. And so I mostly play games. And so we're just trying to create a fast, fun, and free environment. That's what Savvy's about, to play more games and less drills. Is there a place for drills? Absolutely. If I want to level up in pickleball, do I need to drill more? Absolutely. But we don't want to start there. We just want to get there. So that being said, I'm excited to learn from Frank our game of the week.
Yeah, shout out the pickleball school,
That pickleball school, baby.
huh? Game of the week. So, and this is actually a progression, and it's I love this one just because it's so malleable and moldable to whatever you need to work on. It's at its core, it's just a start for a one-on-one game. The base of it is one has the ball, X1 is standing right below free throw line. One's playing with a live dribble, so dribbling the ball. On one's movement, one's either going to break to touch this elbow or one's going to break to touch this elbow. Offense is live. So when defense breaks to an elbow, offense is live, and you're just going to go find the best finish. Obviously, we're hunting nines first. If I were doing this to start, I would say we're one-on-one touch. I've seen it called one-on-one elbow, one-on-one cone. Some people put cones at each elbow. We call it one-on-one touch. And I would say you're going to go score a 9. If this was day one of practice, you're going to go score a 9. If not, you're just going to stop. And so it's a good way to teach 0.5 decisions of reacting to where defense goes, to teach finishes at the rim. And once we get a feel for it, then you can turn it into an either or scenario. So you're going to go finish with advantage, go finish off 1 foot, or stride, stop, and donut. Some other options, you could go 1 foot finish, or Nash, go under a protection plan where you're dribbling around the rim to find a way to score it. You could go stride, stop, or Barkley, right? So whatever protection plan you're working with there. So lots of good live finishes with some reactions built in and some decision making at the rim. We did this earlier this week, and ours was you're going to stride, stop, finish, or I want you to pitch it early. We had a coach standing right over here in the corner. So this would be, let me grab a non. So this would be a coach standing in the corner. So we drive. If I don't have an advantage right away to go finish, a small advantage, maybe a 9 or an 8 at the rim, I'm going to kick to coach. So there's our pass. I'm going to finish my cut, and then we're looking to punch it back in. And so we were working some of our, being 5 out, we were working some of our guard post ups. So again, super moldable and adaptable to what you want to work on. And then you can
Frank,
progress.
before you, are you going into 3v3 touch next?
Yeah,
Before you go, can I just add one more thing?
yeah, of
So I
course.
love it. So in progression 2 of 1v1 touch as well, just to make a connection back to the beginning of what we shared, another thing one could work on besides, posting up afterwards, would be exit cuts or escapes. So if no 9, kick to coach, and then coach can redrive, or player 2, and then they can work on their escape or exit to be able to attack another domino. So yeah, Frank's showing us right now, no 9, they kick, right? Then they're going to work on escaping on the reattack, and they get another chance to then reattack on that kick right there. Obviously, X1 is going to have to stop the attack by the coach, and then they'll be in a domino catch, and we get to kind of reattack. And really, I mean, I love things like that because it teaches not just a skill, but it teaches a decision, right? If no nine, what do I do? In fact, I'm just going back to this college team that we're working with right now. Is like that's what their players need the most. They very willingly, and this is every team, settle for fives. Fives are so shots, highly contested, no advantage inside the paint at the end of a dribble. And if we can just exchange those fives for kicks and escapes, kicks and exits, we are going to then get another bite at the apple to try to get a nine or a seven first. So I just wanted to connect the dots there. Go ahead.
Yeah, we've done it this way too, where this might be kind of bleeding into attack training, but starting with one versus X1 with touch starts, and if I don't get a nine, I'm going to kick to a player. There's a line over here where coach is in the corner. I'm going to kick to him for a wide open seven, and so we're either getting that nine at the rim, or we're making that decision of I'm covered, so I'm going to kick. To the corner for that seven. So again, just lots of ways to adapt this. We like going from one-on-one touch to three-on-three touch. We'll usually do these back to back in our practice plan, and it's the same thing. You can start with a two side. You can have a third offensive player in the corner, a second offensive player in the stretch, and the ball's up top. You can have the twos in the corners, the two players in the corners. I like to start them a little bit higher, just so offense has to move. Everybody has to move when the game starts. But it's the same thing. One has a live dribble; they're just dribbling in place. X1 touches an elbow. One's going to drive. Defense has to react. Three drops. Two has to make a decision. Do I stop ball, or do I guard the corner? Maybe one gets back in time. Maybe there's a X out here or a peel switch, depending on what your defensive concepts are. So lots of things to do there. Three can step over and help. X1 goes to the backside while two stunts and recovers. So again, lots of ways to make this fit. And you can give one the same read. I want you to either score a nine, or I want you to go into a protection plan where then you can find your shot, or you can pitch it out and play from there. So just a small progression, same start. It's seamless in your practice plan, and it gives you a ton of you can do the same drill 10 different ways versus 10 different teams and be prepared.
Yeah, I love that. And a common question a coach might ask about this 3v3 touch is this an offensive or a defensive focused game? And the answer is yes. It's whatever you choose to focus. You know, at SAVI, we believe in always training both sides of the basketball. And so that's why I really dislike questions like, Coach, can you give me a good rebounding drill? Because it says, oh, you can only use this training for this one focus, and it's just a lens that's very limiting, right? Anything can be a good rebounding drill or a good rebounding game if that's what you focus on, if that's what you reward, if that's what you score, and if that's what you teach. So I love what you have shown us with 1v1 touch and 3v3 touch, because you can use it to teach anything. Block left, skirmish or scram out of this penetration, right? Okay, rebounding. That's how you actually score and win out of this disadvantage situation. So really like it. Frank coming in hot with the game of the week. Okay, I'm going to finish this up with a teaching tool. And the teaching tool is show, don't tell. Show, don't tell. And let me connect it to something we did previously and then give you a practice example. We talked about scouting previously. Telling would be me telling our team that our opponents do this thing or that these are the tendencies of these players. That would be telling. Whereas the best thing that you could do is clip out 3 clips of their best player working from the block or their best player attacking in transition. If we were going to play Giannis, I would not say, man, this guy's a freak. He can take 2 steps from the half court and still dunk it at the rim, right? Inconsistent outside shooter, whatever. All you have to do is show 30 seconds of Giannis playing, and then they know. And so, show, don't tell, I would apply across the board, even if you are going to do some scouting. I would also say show, don't tell if we go 1v1 touch. I could line my players up and be like, hey, we're going to play this game. It's called 1v1 touch. We're going to start with somebody at the top of the key. We're going to put someone at the free throw line. They got to touch an elbow. And then this is what you, no, 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 none of that. Okay. Show Frank, go to the top of the key. You're on offense. Tyler, go to the free throw line. You're on defense. Here's the ball. Okay. Tyler, touch an elbow. Frank, go. You're done, you've shown it. Okay, then we can kind of coach it up and be like, okay, now if you don't have a nine, let's pass the corner. Hey coach, go to the corner. Just show it, get into the action. You don't have to teach anything in advance. Show it, coach it, and then we'll get better. In my many years of training directors to run PGC camps, it was the most common mistake of really good coaches that would come and try to teach in a camp, and they would have a list of notes and they would read off their list of what we were going to do, and all the players are like, this sucks, this is boring. Where it's like, no, 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 just start doing it. And then I'll give you a little another glimpse behind the scenes. You probably have all done this. Any coach in a drill or a training situation or a camp situation, when you want someone to demonstrate something, do most coaches, Frank, do most coaches pick the most skilled players to demonstrate or the least skilled players to demonstrate?
Yeah, you're most skilled.
You're most skilled, right? And I could always tell who our confident teachers were and who they weren't, because the non-confident teachers would pick the most skilled players because they would go show it done right. But the majority of the players can't do that thing. Whereas the most value, this goes back to show don't tell, is can you actually just pick like anybody or one of the weaker players, and can you make them better? Because if you can show them getting better by, improving whatever might be footwork, ball speed, reads, whatever, well, then you've shown them the thing that you want everyone to do. Show don't tell. And I would say that in a lesser extent, having your best player demonstrate perfection is telling, whereas having a weaker player or embracing the mess of something new, right, and then having progression from that's showing. So show don't tell has many layers, but you have to be really comfortable with the mess, and you have to think, man, this is fun that it's not working at all right now, and we can work through it together. Every mistake that would happen in a demonstration is going to happen when they go out to their baskets anyway. So if you don't, if you pick people that have done it before, well, you're not actually going to improve what the majority of the group needs when they go out to their baskets. Go ahead, Frank.
Yeah, we had practice this morning, and we were using three baskets. So our sub varsity group's a little bigger right now before tryouts. So we had our varsity group on one basket and our sub varsity at two baskets. And a area of growth for me is I want to stop asking players, does that make sense? Like I want them to just show me, right? I don't want them to tell me what doesn't make sense. Go show me. It does two things, right? It makes me better at explaining in the future. Like, okay, I need to be more clear there. And it also gives me insight into how my players listen, how well they take what I'm saying, which is super important because when we're in a timeout setting, who do I need to make eye contact with to make sure they hear me, and who do I know is going to hear me no matter what? So I think that's a good
Mm-hmm.
growth area, kind of being a little vulnerable here and saying like, I need to stop saying, does that make sense? And because then you get, well, what about this or what about? And a lot of times I often say, I don't even answer the questions anyway. I just say, let's play and we'll figure it out. And so I think that's the best way to do it. I'll even go another level that some coaches might not think about is do the same thing with your coaching staff. So if you're putting in a new offensive concept or a new defensive drill, or you're talking about this, if you have five coaches, great. I know a lot of us don't. Get your coaches and your two managers, right? Let them have some fun running around with you. Our managers are often kids that don't make the team but love basketball and want to stick around. So it's like, hey, hop in here with me and the two other coaches. We're going to go through the trigger we want off a fan. And now you have some fun with your coaching staff. And again, showing and them actually running through it helps them internalize it and learn it. And it's a great way to not only teach, but also kind of bond with that coaching staff.
I like that. Agreed with the does that make sense? And players will lie to you all the time. Does that make sense? Oh yeah, oh yeah. And then they
Yeah.
go out and have no clue what's going on. So it doesn't even matter what they say. Yeah, that's hilarious. All right, well, Frank, it's been an absolute pleasure getting to hang out with you more. I think that this is the most time we've actually spent together FaceTime, and I just really appreciate all of the insight that you provided our coaches. We look forward to our next hour's episode. If you're not a part of our free community, come and hang out with me, Frank, and many, many other coaches in there as we try to get more savvy to play fun, fast, and free.
Yeah, I mean, lots to learn here, right? Go watch it again. I'd say watch it again, get a new
I
king.
always listen. I always, as soon as we release, I always listen to it in the car. My kids are like, "Dad, why are you listening to yourself?" I'm like, "Listen to Frank." Um,
Love it. Love it.
all right, awesome. Well, until next time, I'm Tyler. That's Frank. We're savvy, and we'll see you next time.
Yep. Stay savvy.
Stay savvy.